Yeah, well, I actually, when I left the band, it was because I found out about my oldest son, Joey, that I didn't even know existed. He was 6 years old and had been born in Oregon. So when I found out, and got the test and found out that he was my son, it was like the only thing to do. You know what I mean? To do the right thing for him, and it was hard. You know what I mean? To leave the band and everything, because I mean, it was great. But I was just so close to Sully and to Robbie and the guys that I couldn't hold them back. It wouldn't be fair to them. So I walked away, and like Sully said, we always remained friends, and I'd been playing and writing the whole time after that anyway. So once he introduced me to John and I heard his voice, I packed up and went to Jersey, man, and the rest is history. I actually remember, watching Sully from the crowd when he was with Seika and Strip Mine and stuff, and being a fan. And I think we met at the front row or some bar in Methuen, man, or something. I was playing there.
Dive bar.
Yeah, but I was playing there with a
Like
local
a
band. I
Mooks.
think that was actually when Sully and I met, and like a few weeks after that, we just hooked up and have been friends and writing and hanging out since.
We jammed a few times even before we got the Godsmack thing together too. When he was playing with a band called Hostile, and I think I was with Strip Mine or coming out of Strip Mine or something. And I just remember going to these warehouses. You had some jam space. We used to just horse around and jam together and stuff. And we all kind of had mutual friends. You know, that's what it was. Everyone was kind of from the same area, and we just knew the same people, and we were introduced through those people at some point.
There's no reason.
Well, like I've been explaining to everybody, it's not one of those things that we planned for. It's just one of those things that as musicians do. We spend some time writing whatever we write, and sometimes, you break away from the electric guitars and you're sitting around with an acoustic, screwing around with your buddy, and melodies happen and songs happen, and sometimes you really love that song and you just kind of put it to the side because it's not quite right for a full-length Godsmack record. But, collecting a few of these over time, you start to think, well, it could be a cool little specialty item and something that you could throw out there to see if the fans like. Since it's a little EP, it's not really a win or lose situation because, if it stiffs, it was a specialty item. If it doesn't stiff, it opens up another path for us, And I think with Voodoo and Serenity, people have accepted those songs, and it really opened up that vein for us to pursue kind of music in a sense. Not that we just want to write like that all the time, but it's nice to not have a ceiling over your head, As I've said before, the bands like Zeppelin have showed us and taught us, over the years that they can rock as hard as anybody, but yet have beautiful acoustic material. So why limit yourself to just being that and not being, being able to blossom into other things? So it's nice for us too. It gives us a break from the other thing, which helps us get creative on a different sense and just try to dabble around with different styles and be a little bit more versatile. No, I don't miss it permanently, but I will always be a drummer. I mean, I've been a drummer since I was 3.5 years old. That skit that we do, and every year it gets a little bit better. We always, I don't know where we go sometimes. We always wonder, how are we going to top that? And we were able to put a new thing together, and it's working out really well. And it's always been the asset in this band. It's always been the thing that even when people didn't know Godsmack's music, it was the one thing that lured them in. It was the one thing that kept their attention and won the audience over. And there's two great drummers in this band. Why not utilize that, It's the same reason why there's two singers in the band, and why not utilize that? It's an autobiography that I wrote that I didn't realize I was writing. It was just something that I started calling my friends back home when I was touring, and there's just a lot of times that you're out here that there's really nothing going on, or you're on a 12-hour flight, or you're on a 15-hour bus ride, and you call your friends and, hey, what's up? And you start talking about all these things that you did when you were kids. And some of these things that, that I've lived through growing up in Lawrence, which is a really ghetto place, and seeing the crime and the violence and the gangs and the cops and whatever, and being involved in drugs and all this crap that you go through when you live in that kind of lifestyle, I just found myself thinking, wow, this is really like, I don't know if I would believe some of these stories if I didn't experience them myself or see them with my own two eyes. So I started writing them down just to document them so I could remember them when I was 60, you know, because I was like, some of these are really funny, some of them are really weird, but whatever, they happened. It was part of my past. And the more I wrote, the more I started to organize them by dates of events. And then it started to, you know, I started to think, wow, this could be a really cool thing to do for the people who maybe still are living this kind of life. So it's not your cliche rock and roll autobiography. It's not about how many times we've overdosed on heroin or how many girls we've slept with. It's about me as, you know, from the time I was born until Godsmack got a record deal, and then it ends there. And what it took to get me from point A to point B. That's really what it's about. It's about seeing us as the same people that they are, and that we're not born rock stars or actors and actresses. We're the same people who stole cars and beat people up at the mall when you were 16 and smoked pot behind your mother's back and all the stuff that you do as kids do. And I thought it may be a little bit more inspirational that way, to show people that, you know, if you're living that kind of lifestyle, but you have a passion and a dream, that it's accomplishable and you can get away from this. It just takes a little bit of focus and dedication, you know, and discipline. And but you have to meet the good people with the bad people to get to those places, because everyone in your life is there for a reason, and you learn something from that experience. Even if it's a terrible experience, it helps you become a little bit wiser. So that's the kind of book that I wrote, and now it's in an editing stage, and I'm working with a guy named Michael Azerrad, who did the Nirvana book and a couple other books, and great guy. He's coming out in a couple of days to kind of polish off the rough ends, and I'm hoping again to get that out by the end of the year. I think it'll be a cool book for people to check out.
I can't control you. You're not my destiny.
I know that rock music, rock and roll, you know, there's a reason why they say rock and roll will never die, because it's just, you know, it always comes back to that, the basic root of rock and roll. And no matter what new music is invented, and all these bands that we've seen fly by us, we've seen them come right back down, and we don't take large leaps, you know. We've always kind of referred ourselves to like the little engine that could. Remember that little children's book? There's this little engine, you know, that just, and these big steam trains go blowing by him, and they break down way up the road, and he comes chugging by. And that's kind of what we've done, is like one step at a time, you know. And these bands go Linkin Park and all this stuff, and it's going crazy. And you feel that, you know, you're a bit envious at first, and you go, man, you know, we've been out here busting our ass for years and years and sweating and grinding and sludging through the streets, and these bands write one song, Evanescence, and boom, they're gone. But then, you know, a couple of years later, we see them going, and we come chugging by, you know. So we're just enjoying the ride while it lasts, that's all. Huge influence on me. As a vocalist, I mean, any singer that says that those two weren't the most powerful duet in the last 20 years are liars. Those guys came out with the most unique sound. What a voice on that guy. And it's such a waste of talent, man. And it's upsetting. I still, to this day, sometimes go, man, I put on an Alice in Chains record and I'll find myself jamming to it. And then I stop and I go, I can't believe this guy is dead. Sometimes you just don't realize that he did that to himself. You know, those guys hadn't even scratched the surface yet. They were just starting to really shine, man. And it's a tragedy, man. It's really unfortunate. It's too bad that he didn't care about himself enough to see what a superstar he was and how much he influenced. I couldn't even put a number to it. I mean, you could go around to all the bands that are signed and get a number, but there's how many hundreds of thousands of bands aren't signed yet that were just, you know, became a singer because of him. I know that he was a major part of me wanting to take that step. I do. You know, if it all ended tomorrow, I really couldn't say that I would be disappointed. You know, the band has sold 7 million records. We've seen the whole world just about. We've toured with our childhood hero bands, Black Sabbath, Metallica, Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, there's just been so many great moments out here already. I got to sing Heaven and Hell with Black Sabbath. I mean, I hang out with James Hetfield now, like I've known him since I was 12. It's just there's amazing things that have happened. We've toured with Ozzy. I mean, I don't want it to end. I love what I do, and I think that we're just scratching the surface, to be honest with you. I think the band now with Shannon and experimenting with new writing styles and stuff, I think really, this is the beginning of what we're about to do. I think the first couple records were just, they were, I look back now and I think that maybe some of that stuff was just the experimental stage, and now I'm starting to think that I'm not even sure if we found what Godsmack sounds like yet, because we still tap into a new thing that we go, oh, that's a different sound for us. So it's who's to say.
But that's always the sign.